These days, it's all about image. It's all about what you're wearing, all about these badges, all about everything, you know, how many followers you got on Instagram. Unless you're at the top of the tree living in Dubai, you're never ever gonna be rich. You're never ever gonna be successful. None of the kids are getting absorbed into the Christian faith, and it's a shame. More so if you look at the Muslim faith. I mean, you look at the Muslim faith, they are brothers on brothers. In some ways, it's not a great thing because they stop each other from talking to the police about potential terrorists, grooming gangs, but they're all together.
They're all together.
They're all together, and they go everywhere together. They buy things together. They're a strong collective group, and that's why people like Andrew Tate have taken that step to go down that route, because I think he knows that he's got the collective protection. The earlier days of the EDL were very much had the right message, but what it turned into when Tommy left, I couldn't see any organisational side of things there. Everyone was like here, there and everywhere. Nothing was really planned. You know, the message was there, but the message wasn't being shown properly. So I took control of it. So what I did is I took the initiative to start an event.
The Central Club.
What's going on, people? Welcome to the Central Club. This episode is brought to you by Re-Inspire Printing and Boss Security. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the club, and hit the bell button to be notified of future content. Again, we're here in my uncle's cottage in the lovely Kingston, in Surrey, the outskirts of London. And we've got another amazing guest. This is someone who's very close to a previous guest we've had on. I've heard about this man. I've seen this man in social media. I've seen him on YouTube, and it's a bit of a mystery behind his character. In my eyes, a lot of people might know his story, but to me, I wanted to know more. And I've never really seen any interviews of him. I've never seen a podcast. And he is very controversial. I think if you've ever seen this man before, he's portrayed as Tommy Robinson's bodyguard, Tommy Robinson's right-hand man. But I want to hear more of that, because if you see him on face value, you would just probably think he's an EDL supporter who, hangs around with Tommy Robinson. But I don't think that's the case, and I want to find out more. So, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome Mr. Danny Tommo.
How you doing?
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a while since I've been on camera. I've been away for a while, but it's nice to be seen, and I'm looking forward to the chat.
Yeah. Honestly, I really appreciate it. It's amazing how we got into contact, I think.
Indeed.
And I always think that things happen for a reason. I was coming up to London anyway to do some filming, and it just worked out perfectly.
Yeah, the trip wasn't too bad. It was not too far. It's better than going to Wales anyway.
Oh, thanks.
That'd have been a hell of a trip.
Well, it's not that bad, actually.
No, I do.
Tommy came twice, so
I know, yeah. It's a trip though, isn't it? It's a hell of a trip.
Yeah.
But thanks for having me. It's nice to be here.
Are you still in contact with Tommy?
Yeah, I talk to him every day pretty much. Everything that we've been through, or I've seen him go through, and everything I've been involved in. I class him as a very, very good friend of mine, and I've stuck by his side, and I'll always be in contact with him.
Yeah, that's good. I think, I don't want to make this about Tommy, although a big part of your journey is through that, and we will get into that. But I think what I want to do really with you, Dan, is find out who you are and where your journey's come from, because you've got a hell of a journey, mate. And
it's been emotional, man.
Yeah, and the change in your life as well, from what you was into where you are now, is something we champion on this podcast all the time. So I think first of all is just give us a bit of a background on yourself.
Yeah, so I grew up in Portsmouth, down the south coast. I moved there when I was about 15. Beautiful house over on a place called Hayden Island. That's where I lived. My background for family purposes, I mean, my old man and my mum, we had a fantastic childhood. My childhood was full of love, and I had everything that we needed. And probably due to my own faults, quite a young age, I started going down the wrong routes, which was really unfortunate for my father, who tried very hard to take me in the right direction. He was from a very rough council estate in the Midlands in Coventry. Had a tough life, made something of himself, and the man that he was, considering where he came from, it was an iconic story itself. So, growing up in the environment that I grew up in, I think the problem was that going to school and end up mixing with the wrong individuals, and ended up disrespecting my father and disrespecting what he tried to do for me, and that led to me to being homeless at the ages of like 15, 16, through my own fault. I've got young brothers and sisters that that were much younger than me, and I could see, now being a dad myself, I could see that all he was trying to do was protect the younger ones, and couldn't have sort of the madness around him. I was getting in quite a lot of fights when I was younger, to a point where probably the catalyst was when we used to buy cars and just drive around in cars. Like, I was 16 years old, and unluckily for me, I got pulled over in the car that I was driving right outside my road where I was growing up, where I used to live. And long behold, mum, dad, sister and brother drove past and saw me standing with a police officer, and that was sort of like the end of it, being so close to home for my dad. Ended up moving in with a very close friend of mine that's still my friend today. And then the madness started. I needed money. My dad was funding, sort of sending money to the person that I was living with, his mum. For me, it wasn't enough. And I get in the circles with people that were dealing, and I ended up sort of like taking packages from here, there, left, right and centre. I mean, the one that sticks out for me is I was 16 years old and a load of heroin had gone missing. The Scousers had come down, and they were outside the house with shotguns, and I was underneath a bed with the other kids that were in the house, and they were about to come in and do what, because it genuinely had gone, I think it had been flushed down the toilet, the old bill were going to come, and then they didn't believe it, and they sent, as you can imagine, they sent their people. So all these type of things started happening and started projecting me in a way where I couldn't see a return to normal life. I had a tough life from 16, 17, 18, felt I wasn't loved by the family, very ousted. Used to see all the Facebook things of them going on holiday together, brother and sisters all enjoying themselves, and then there's me, the black sheep of the family. I did turn myself around. I decided that enough was enough. I decided to join the army. I went into the KRH, King's Royal Hussars tank regiment. Unfortunately for me, I got injured in bayonet training, and my kneecap ended up being dislocated, and that was my end of my army career.
Can I just interject there, for people listening? How hard, like, what was that turning point for you to say enough is enough? Because we all know how hard it is to get out of something like that.
Yeah.
The drug dealing, the drug trafficking.
Yeah.
Probably the resentment and hate towards your family. What was it that made you change?
Having a baby, really.
Really?
Yeah. When I was young, 17, 18, when I had the baby, and I knew that I looked at myself in the mirror and I thought, what are you doing? Like, yeah, okay, the money's okay. The people that I thought were my friends were only my friends because I'm in that world. As soon as I want to step away from that world, they're not your friends anymore because you're not making money for them. Then you're not part of their group. So looking in the mirror and realising that I had to change something quickly, and then realising that the reason I was being ousted from the family was because of my own behaviour. I used to blame them for what they were doing. How can you do this to me? How can you do this to me? And then so looking in the mirror really over a short space of time, realising I had to change it because my son is going to be growing up soon, and what sort of father figure would I be to be in that type of character?
Yeah, of course.
So yeah.
Do you think it's within you, something like that? It falls on your lap where you just think, wow, enough's enough, or is this something you can teach to other youngsters?
You have to step yourself out. You have to step yourself out of the situation, and you have to look into the situation and see what benefits happen for you, and seeing where you're going to be in 5 years' time. There's a lot of kids these days that get involved in dealing a little bit of weed and dealing a little bit of coke, thinking that they're going to end up being really rich and everything else. What they don't realise is the risk factors. The risk factors are so big for such a small reward, and a lot of kids don't see that. A lot of kids don't have a lot of father figures in their life. A lot of the reason that lads that I was hanging around with, their dads weren't in their lives, and that for me was part of it. Looking at people saying, is that the main reason? Well, it sort of is, because where I bring my children up, I'm on my kids. I've got 5 children. I've got 4 boys and 1 girl. I'm on my kids 24 hours a day. My son, he can't go out without me looking on a map where he is, ringing him 3 or 4 times while he's out, finding out where he is, because I learned from the mistakes that potentially my father made, but rightly to protect the others in my family. So, yeah, I think without someone being there to explain to youngsters, to me in them days, where are you going to be in 5 years? This isn't going to last. Unless you're at the top of the tree living in Dubai, you're never ever gonna be rich. You're never ever gonna be successful. And when this all ends, you're gonna have nothing to fall back on. So it's a hard one, and a lot of kids don't get that these days. They really don't.
Well, everything's magnified now, isn't it, as well? And I think, you know, back in our era, we should say, you know, the odd person might get lucky and might make millions and at a young age. Very rare. I don't even know anyone, to be honest. Like, it's only one or two, and they were kind of born into it anyway and made something from that. They could have pissed it up the wall, but they made something. Nowadays, these kids, they're becoming millionaires off YouTube, gaming, crypto.
But it's even that they see that and they strive for that. But again,
everyone else around them feels their life is nothing if they ain't that.
I know.
That's the problem.
Social media's destroyed, I believe, the generations of our children, 100%. Like these days, you know, when I was a kid, I couldn't wait to get out on my bike, go into the forest, do, you know, when I was young, just get out, and even like making a fire in it, you know, in it somewhere, and playing armies and stuff like that. I remember the days. Like these days, it's all about image, it's all about what you're wearing, all about these badges, all about everything. You know, how many followers you got on Instagram, you know, and even my son. Like I minimise what my son does has Instagram and these type of things, but you just look at it and think, well, what are you doing? Why are you looking like that for? Just like, they're hiding their faces. They're doing all this, and like what is all this?
Pointing at each other.
Yeah, pointing at each other and doing all these gang. Like he doesn't even know what they mean. They're just doing it because they think it's cool, and it's a real shame. And it's looking forward in the generations that are to come. Where are these lot going to be? Like,
exactly.
It's a scary time because we've got the old generation that are now, you know, in their 80s that live the right life, I believe, lived by Christian values, and that's something that's hugely missing from the communities. Like I live my life now as a Christian, devout Christian, and everything I do is based on that, and that's why my life now is the way it is. And that's such a strong message. I'm not going to sit in church. It's not about sitting in church. No. It's not about sitting in front of a priest that's boring, that's standing there. The church that I go to is 95% black church. It's the church that suits me because they're all about, you know, community. Most of the time, everyone's having barbecues. They're all eating. They're all going. You know, they order Domino's after. Everyone just sits, and the message is relevant to the generations that we're at now. So it resonates with you when they talk. When the pastor talks, you think, yeah, that's that. Yeah, God, yeah, you're right. Yeah, not sitting there in a church where it's boring. That's why the Christian church, the old school Christian church, is no more there really because of the way that they are.
Do you think it's a matter of being able to move with the times within the religion, but interpreting the same scripture in a way where you relate to the modern times? That's what I think
what's happened is I think it's all orchestrated. I think it's been orchestrated to take Christianity and God out of everything. Take it out the schools, take it out the way of life, take it out. You know, look back in the 50s, the 60s. You know, most people, normal people, lived a Christian lifestyle. That, you know, you got married. You know, you had christenings. You know, you lived. You know, don't hurt your neighbour. Don't kill. Don't.
Well, that's how I live. Love thy neighbour. And I don't know anything
these days,
else
you
but
just
that.
don't. Everyone wants to. You know, none of the kids are getting absorbed into the Christian faith, and it's a shame. More so, if you look at the Muslim faith. I mean, you look at the Muslim faith, they are brothers on brothers. In some ways, it's not a great thing because they stop each other from talking to the police about potential terrorists, grooming gangs, but they're all together.
They're all together.
They're all together and they go everywhere together. They buy things together. They're a strong collective group. And that's why people like Andrew Tate have taken that step to go down that route, because I think he knows that he's got the collective protection from the world.
I don't think he would get that from Christianity.
No, he wouldn't. No, of course he wouldn't. No, of course he wouldn't. Because if you go into a church on a Sunday, a normal church like we have all around our country, there's a couple of 85-year-olds in there all praying, and there's no youngsters. There's no modernisation of the church. The church hasn't modernised, and that's the problem. And that's what the church that I go to is attempting to do, to modernise Christianity in a way that it resonates with people, to bring them to Christ.
The message the thing that you're saying here is exactly what Calvin Robinson was saying, the deacon who's on GB News and stuff. He was saying we are a Christian country, and it's dying massively. We don't have our values anymore. No. Like you said, some people might not even have went to church, but they lived by those values. Yeah. And it's everything around us is with. If we want our country to come back as, you know, a proud Great Britain, he thinks the only way forward is to do that.
Yeah. Well, it's the orchestration as well, being a white Christian male that loves his country. it's probably a racist. He's probably racist. I mean, that you know, all we hear that is black and white, black and this, white this, racist this. You know, it's all you hear on the radios, the TVs, the newspapers. It's all orchestrated to keep us all apart, to stop us from uniting, stop us being. You know, when I was growing up, if you were black, you were brown, you were white. It was just all the same.
Yeah.
Like I don't understand. We've now been orchestrated to all suddenly fight against each other. And to be honest, it's worked. It has worked.
I think 9/11 was the catalyst for that, though.
Yeah,
Before that,
right,
like
yeah.
I said, everything was transcendent for me. I didn't really know any difference. I know when we're younger, we don't anyway, but I think from then, things amped up massively.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a real shame. But when this generation of hard Christians from within the English communities within Great Britain, once they pass, it's going to be very difficult to keep. I mean, all these churches, every town, every village has got a church. There's no one going there.
Well, they're probably being converted into mosques or
They are, yeah.
other things now.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're taking over. It's because they will use them.
Yeah.
They will
Yeah.
fill out that mosque. When
Yeah.
it's a shame that the church won't.
It is. It's very sad. But with the church that I go to, thriving. People we go on outreaches where people stand in town and they preach in a way that resonates with youngsters and we, you know, the church and the pastor that he gets people in all the time, new people, and they feel that modernisation of Christianity, and that's really important.
I'm based in a church, St. John's Church. It's in the city centre of Cardiff, and again, it's pretty booming. I think there's a lot of old people in there. I work there with my recovery. They've given us a room because they want to fill it out, because they want bodies in there. They want to feel some sort of life in there. And that's sad, you know, but at the same time, it's wonderful. We have people in every day for cups of coffee. They're looking for a pair of socks. We've got like baskets and baskets of donations off people, and we get them in as much as we can. But
It's good. It's really good.
we need more of that, don't we? We
100%,
definitely need more of
And
that.
there's ways of doing it, but you've just got to modernise it. And, and like you say, at the moment, it's only a small percentage of the Christianity sort of like community that are actually doing that.
Yeah, I agree.
Calvin's a good guy, man. He's got a good message, and because he's not white, people listen to him in the media sense. Because if you're a white Christian man, you try and portray this message, you're just labelled, or you're just ignored.
Yeah.
So,
but I think the maddest shit about it is now, this wacky time we're in, is people call him. I've seen people call him racist.
It's crazy. Yeah, I know.
It's just mad.
I know. It's just it's a way. It's diluted itself so much on the real the racist side of things. I mean, you know, someone that is racist. You know, I wouldn't be friends with someone like that, because I think that I take people as they are. I don't look at people by skin color. I look at people by their actions. If you are behaving in a certain way, I don't care what color you are. I don't care where you come from. I'm going to criticize you because of your behaviors, not because of the way you look. And that's something that you know, that's gone through. I know Tommy totally agrees with, and because of the previous EDL and what certain people in there, it's a label that's just stuck for a long time. Shame.
Yeah, so it is a massive shame. And just to jump on that quickly, when we talk about the division of you know, I look at people like this, the elites themselves. It's not just race; they really divide us by class.
Yeah, of course.
You know, because if you're a white man and you've got no money, you use drugs, we're treating you the same as that black person. It doesn't matter. That's how it is in how they look at things.
You have to wake up. I mean, one of the things that's really, for me, is a positive thing with working with Tommy and doing things with him for the last how many years, is my eyes are open. Like looking at these gas prices, looking at these electric prices, looking at the way that people are living. Like the UK government have enough money to stop this from happening. They could easily regulate these companies to stop people from having to spend so much money on electricity. It's literally to keep you low. It started off, you know, going back a couple of years. It started with the COVID, and then suddenly COVID disappeared, within a week, these lefties were putting from having their COVID certificate as their profile pic. It suddenly went to Ukraine
flags.
and then, you know, it's all orchestrated, and the way that it makes you feel like, and it makes me understand how the Germans in the 1930s manipulated their people, the Jews, and it makes me realise how easy it is with the right propaganda to brainwash people for them to go with whatever you say. And it's fear. It's a fear. Fear is something that will make you do things that you necessarily wouldn't do. it's a crazy one, and they're at the top at the moment of the spear of just pushing fear after fear after fear. Even the taxes, looking at all the taxes that people have to pay. Realistically, the amount of taxes that you pay are well over what you should pay. You shouldn't have to pay all these taxes. You should be, someone that earns a good amount of money has to give 40% of their wages to the government. I mean, you think about, you don't really have to. They're just making sure that people don't get rich quick. They start thinking for themselves. They rely on benefits in the lower classes, and it will never change, because at the moment we've got a two-tier parties, Labour Party and Conservatives. People keep going between the two. You just need to get rid of both of them.
Yeah.
And get someone in there that's actually going to change something for the people. The opportunity was there with UKIP in 2019. Tommy became a spokesperson for UKIP in 2019. He took the party to somewhere that it had never been before. It was classed as the third biggest party in the UK. It took it over from the Liberal Democrats. What happened was then they became greedy. They became just like a normal political party. They didn't want to listen to what the people were saying. They had an infighting of where one side wanted Tommy, the other side didn't. And for that reason, when Tommy walked away, the whole thing collapsed. And now they're pretty much non-existent.
Do you think it's possible to actually have a party then that is not controlled by some sort of...
Well, it's pretty easy. It's really, in layman's terms, all you got to do is get to the masses and say, don't vote for Conservative, don't vote for Labour, vote for these people. But what will happen is because so many people want a slice of the pie, realistically, all these smaller groups, political parties, could all come together, sit around a table and go, right, we're taking the vote from you, we're taking the vote from you. Why don't we all work out a way to work with each other, be under one umbrella, get the message out to everyone as best as we can, and start changing it? But they don't. They all want to be the top leader. They all want to be the leader. They all want to, they all want to be the spokesperson.
They know best.
Yeah, and that's why you until that happens, you'll never see a change. You won't see a change unless you get into political sphere, and it's a very difficult one to deal with.
Well, I'm sorry, we were talking about
in
the army, but we just kind of went off on a tangent, didn't we? But I like that.
Yeah.
It's real. So you left the army. What was it like, your experience in the army anyway?
It was great. It made me a man. I think if everyone, if it was you're made to go in the army at a young age, and even at least do 2 or 3 years, what happens in the army creates the understanding of life. You understand the camaraderie of being around people that you support, you want to protect, and it makes you into a character that when you come out, you look at life a lot differently. Unfortunately, I didn't stay in long enough to fully get that, because obviously I only spent a small amount of time in there. And when I came out, I unfortunately started going down a bit of another route, because it's all sort of that I knew. I mean, I don't get me wrong, I have had jobs where I was a recruitment consultant for a few years. I tried that.
I can imagine you was.
Yes,
you are. You look. You've got that written all over you.
I was very good at sales. I was very good at that. But the money wasn't where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And I ended up going back to stupid things. And I'll be honest to you, that it's very selfish for me to say the reasons why I went down the wrong routes and why I ended up in prison. The reason I ended up in prison is because it was a point where my children, it was very close to Christmas. I knew that I didn't have enough money to provide with all the presents and, everything that comes with a Christmas and everything else. And I had an opportunity to get involved and take some things, some places. And looking back at it now, how stupid I was, because even with the amount of stuff I had in the back of the car, if I'd have got caught, I'd have been doing 10, 15 years, 100%. And I did that. It's selfish of me to say I did that for my kids. I didn't. I did that to try and get quick money. But at that point in my life, I thought, right, let me do this. And then that's when things went downhill. Some of the stuff that we had went missing. We were given false information. We ended up at a house that wasn't the right house. The person had the right name but wasn't the right person. And I ended up getting convicted and ended up doing attempted kidnap in prison for 2 years, which was a hard time.
Well, yeah. What was it like doing that time?
Yeah, so you don't realise. The saddest thing for me was seeing youngsters who didn't have the confidence and the ability to mould themselves into that world. When I went inside, I was advised by people that I knew that had been in prison, do yourself a favour, don't get into debt, don't borrow anything, don't get involved in any of the gangs, don't get involved with anyone, go to the gym, get big, do some education, come out, live your life. exactly what I did every day. I became obsessed with fitness. I went up to 14 stone. I was big. I had tattoos, which helped because I know it's a bit weird, but in prison, it's all about the way you look. And looking back at some of the situations that I found myself in, I mean, the first time I remember coming from the court, first time I got put in, I was in Winchester prison, and I remember getting taken. It's about 10 in the evening, and I remember walking into the room with a hard pillow, a blanket. Walking into this room, the whole thing was smashed to pieces, bits everywhere, and then that door closes. And I remember just lying there. It's like 3 a.m. thinking, "Fuck, man, what have I done?" Like, all I think about was the kids. Like, my daughter was very young. Jesus, man, thinking back at it, it was hard, mate. But you couldn't show weakness in there. I had a fight within the space for a few days because some guy that I was in a cell with decided to have one of the rules in jail is you don't go to the toilet number 2 when the doors are locked. And the guy took the piss, and I woke up to this guy having a shit behind my head, so I lost it. And got moved then straight away, and you have to sort of make a point of it. But it was horrible. It was horrible. Yeah. It was really bad.
It's constant, isn't it? It's 24-hour alert. Like,
I was lucky to get moved. I got moved to a Cat C working jail, I met some really good individuals, people that had made a mistake on a night out, like a fight, ended up hitting someone, stamping on their head, guy died. 18 years, really nice individuals that had never been in trouble before.
Yeah.
And then you've got the young lads that are just tormented by the predominantly black gangs. They used to come in, you used to then get a canteen, you have to write down what you want from the canteen, and then on the Friday it be given to you. And these people were just like going into the cell saying, "I want that, that, and that." And on the Friday they come and take the lot, and the last thing you want to do in jail is start talking to the screws about anything, because you'll just probably get stabbed up. So just watching these things, and part of me was like, I wanted to step in, because I knew that what was going on was wrong. And I could see these people were suffering and crying at night. I could hear them crying, and I knew next day I was like, "Do you know what? When that idiot comes back, I'm just going to go in there and just chat." I thought, and I'm putting a target on my head, and I end up getting a nick in, or I'll end
all
up.
the time.
Yeah. So I had a tough time because I didn't have any. When I went to jail, I didn't let my mum and dad know. They didn't find out that I was in jail.
That's crazy.
I made sure that my friends, because I was away from them and I wasn't really around them, I didn't really speak to them because I was the black sheep of the family. When I went into jail, I said the first thing, "Don't tell my dad. Whatever you do,
sad,
do not tell my dad." And it took them 3 months.
Respect to you, but that's sad.
3 months to find out that I was in there.
It must have hurt you, because my mum and dad disowned me, but every time I went to prison, they were the first ones to...
Yeah. Yeah, I went in with no money.
I mean?
I went in no money, no clothes, no letters from. At that point, I wasn't in a good place with my baby mum. I had no visits from the kids, no contact with the kids, no contact. I didn't speak to my kids for 13 months.
Wow.
And I was a very angry person because of it. But in a way, I was glad that I didn't have any contact with them, because I didn't want them to have the memories of that. So it worked, even though it was hard to deal with. I felt like it was the right choice, even though it wasn't my choice, because she just didn't put the effort into it and talk to me. But it was a tough time.
Just want to jump in quickly, guys, and let you know that us here at the Central Club podcast, we work really, really hard to give you this content. People think setting up a podcast is just as simple as pressing play on a camera, but it's like a full-time job. And, when I first started this podcast, I promised myself that I wouldn't cut corners. That's all I've ever done in my life, is cheat and, get a head start on things. But I always knew that I wanted to start from the ground up with this. And I've made sure that everything is to a high standard. But with that comes a lot of time and a lot of money. And all I ask for you is take out less than 1 second in your life to please press subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. What do you know about Wales' #1 rated security provider, Boss Security? Boss Security Limited are a professional security service provider based in South Wales, but servicing clients on a national scale. With over 10 years of experience in the security industry, they are true experts in all aspects of security. From CCTV monitoring, manned guards, mobile patrols, and alarm response, they provide the most advanced technology on the market, along with an expert team of staff delivering complete security solution to their clients throughout the UK. Before we jump on to you know,
Yeah.
coming out of prison and, you know, how you kind of met Tommy and went on this mad journey, something happened to you and your best mate before you went to prison, didn't it? Can you go through that?
Yeah. So, yeah. So there was a group of us. The boy that I told you I lived with when I left my mum and dad's house, his name's Ben, and next door to him was my other best friend called Daryl, and we were a trio, complete trio. Every day we'd come out of his house, go next door, we'd go out and do stuff. Daryl was a live life to the fullest kind of character. Loved his MDMA, loved those type of drugs. Not from a really young age. He only got into it later in life, but. Yeah, it was one day I remember the day I was sat down and I was watching Britain's Got Talent. I had my baby was just being moved to the bed to go to sleep, and there was a knock at the door, and it was two friends. One was Daryl and one was another one, and I could tell straight away that they were like off their face. And I was like, what have you been doing? He's like, oh, MDMA. I was like, mate. But, you know, I was happy to have these boys. I've known these boys all my life. So I knew these boys weren't going to disrespect my house. I knew they weren't going to start being like druggies in the house. And they came in, they sat down. And one of the things that happened was there was a couple of lads that are in there that are now not friends, who decided it would be quite funny to start putting MDMA in his drink while he was in my house, to get him fucked. And I remember being in the kitchen, things he started taking. So he was taking stuff, and obviously there was also stuff in the drink. So he was double dosing. So I'm in the kitchen, I'm having a cigarette out the window in the kitchen. The next thing I hear a scream, and it's my baby mum saying something's wrong with Daryl. I run in there, and his head's just back, eyes are in the back of his head. I knew straight away. No, that's so. Let me go back a little bit because it's actually quite important. Actually, just before that happened, I knew that he was getting bad. I could tell by the way he was behaving. He said, "I'm going to the toilet." He knows my gaff. He knows that the toilet isn't towards the kitchen. So I started walking towards the kitchen, and his feet were hanging out, and he was doing all this. So I took him for a walk outside. I tried to get him some fresh air. I walked him around the block, came back to the house, and I was like, "What the fuck?" I didn't know they'd put it in his drink. I had no idea. I didn't even know he was taking it. I just knew he was fucked. So I got back to the house, sat down, and then within 10, 15 minutes, I was in the kitchen. A scream came into the front room, and his head was back, eyes were rolling, and then I pulled him off the sofa, trying to because his body was lifeless. Realised he wasn't breathing, and I panicked, and I didn't know what to do. So I pulled him down. I did CPR. I tried my hardest. All I could hear was like a squishing noise, no breath. I tried mouth to mouth. Carried that on for it felt like hours, maybe 20 minutes till the ambulance turned up. They tried to inject him with something to try and get his heart going again, but he was gone. The thing is, one of the things that happened prior to that was when I realised that he was fucked before I took him for the walk, the lad that had the gear, I said, "Give me the gear, give it to me. You're not doing it. This is my house. What are you doing?" That's it. The end of it. That's the end of the night. Because I hadn't taken nothing. Because I had my baby in bed. I was not like that when I was around my kids. I took it off him, put it in my pocket, and then obviously everything happened. The police turned up. They obviously searched the place. They searched me. I had MDMA in my pocket. So now they're looking at me. Well, where's that? I said, no, I've taken it off him. At that point, they arrested me. So I got arrested. So I'm now sat in a cell. My best mate's just died in front of me in my house. I'm now in police custody. I'm now sat in a cell. Had the interview, explained it. Obviously, they spoke to everyone. They confirmed everything was going on, and I was released. But it was very difficult to go back to the flat. I made some, I was going through a rough time at that point anyway, and that just sort of like amplified my mental health to a really, really low point. Certain things happened where the baby mum had moved out. I was now on my own in this place, and cries for help. I tried overdosing on pills. I'd done things because I couldn't see. I found out baby mum was with someone else. Best mate's gone. Wow. I'm on my own in this flat. I don't know what to do. I know I try and take my life, but I was ringing people while I was doing it. So it was a cry for help. I remember two of my really good friends kicking the door down, and I was just apparently, I don't remember this, but I was laying on the front room floor just convulsing, and they took me to hospital, and so that was a tough time for me. So not having a father to call, not having a mum to call, not having any immediate family around you, baby mum's gone, best mate's, the one that you would have called has just died in front of you.
Was this kind of like the path to where you then done these kidnappings and went to prison? Was it all this in one, was it?
Because I didn't care. I didn't care anymore. I didn't care about how I was looked at, what I was doing. I remember turning up at mum and dad's house and begging for some food. I was living in cars, begging them. And my dad was like, "You ain't coming in. You're not." And he was old school, so he thought he was doing me a favour. Yeah. Tough love. But it had the absolute opposite effect. It turned me into a person that I didn't want to be, but I had no choice to be because that's all I knew at that point. So, tough one, man.
Rest in peace, Darryl.
Rest in peace, Darryl. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you gave your life to Christ when
in prison.
On
I want to touch on that. So one of the things that was very clear in prison that a lot of lads are converting to Islam to survive in prison. I'll be honest. I think you're a weak character if you think that. I know there is certain other reasons why some people do it for protection and everything else, but I went the opposite way. I took a Bible, started reading it. I'm a bit dyslexic, so I couldn't really read a lot of it, but I tried my hardest to understand it. But then I realised that it wasn't actually about reading the Bible. It was actually about praying, giving yourself and making a promise to God and to Christ that I would change and that I would stick to that change. And that in prison I did that, and I made a promise to my children and to my family that when I came out of prison, that was it. That was it. I was going to turn my life around for my kids, and it worked. It worked because if you give your life to Christ and you mean it and you follow the right path, my God, it is one of the best things you'll ever experience in your life. And it's not about getting on the floor and praying. It's about having a purpose in life. You feel when you're following Christ the way that I feel I follow it, it gives you a purpose, and it saved me 100%. 100%, it saved me. Yeah.
Congratulations
Thank
on
you,
that,
man.
bro.
Thank you.
It's an amazing turnaround, bro.
Yeah, it is massively.
But if you look at the wider public, the masses, they'd probably think that your life went downhill even more.
You would think that. But
how did you?
Yeah, so
how did you come into contact with Tommy?
Okay, so let's start from the very beginning. When I came out of prison, I was in a tag house. I was in a tag house for 6. I did the rest of my sentence in a tag house.
Tag house, yeah.
And I ended up leaving the tag house and coming back down to Portsmouth Way, and I ended up starting a business, selling websites. So I was selling websites, made it really successful, really. And if it wasn't for the situation with Tommy, I'd probably still be going at it now. But it's basically what happened was that when Tommy did a banned speech by a guy from Austria, I think it's Austria, I might have that wrong, but Martin Sellner, he was denied entry into the UK to give a speech in Speaker's Corner. And because of that, Tommy took it upon himself to take that speech, go down to Speaker's Corner on the day that he was supposed to do it, and he was going to read the speech. That was the first time I'd ever seen Tommy in person. I'd heard of Tommy beforehand. My dad and my mum watched him. I knew about him. I knew about the EDL. I was never part of the EDL, never part of any movement of the EDL at all.
Do you want to state that twice just for the people?
Well, no, I don't mind. Listen, the earlier days of the EDL were very much had the right message, but what it turned into when Tommy left, I've got no sympathy for any of them. I think they did some stupid stuff and they made it into what it's known as today.
Yeah.
But the original EDL that Kev Carroll and Tommy that made, they had the right message. They were looking to protect their own, something that the police refusing to do. So back down in Speaker's Corner, I got a real feel for this guy. It was like I could see people's faces, young men that were besotted by him and looking at him like a leader, because they were turning to seeing their country in a certain light. A lot of information being fed to them about certain things that were happening, and Tommy was the only voice willing to say what needed to be said, and people loved that about him. So seeing that into Speaker's Corner, and then obviously we all know the story of Tommy going to Leeds and going outside the court, and then Tommy being arrested. Tommy is the first man in the UK to be to have that happen to him, where he is a judge tells the police to go outside. He is arrested. He is taken to court. He is convicted, and he is sentenced and sent to prison, all in the same day. And they made it very. People don't know. They refused to allow Tom to talk to his lawyer. They didn't let him. They didn't plea. They're saying that a lot of the reports are, I pleaded not guilty. I pleaded guilty. He never pleaded. So this has happened. Everyone knows that it was a massive thing. And obviously, when that happened, one of the things that I was part of was being on social media and seeing this happen. And I got a real feel in myself, like there was a talk about going down to Downing Street, going and making your voices heard. So I did exactly that. I'd only been out of prison a very short space of time, went down to Downing Street. And when I got there was just groups of maybe 200-300 people to start with. We were just screaming, we want Tommy out, we want Tommy out. But I couldn't see any organisational side of things there. Everyone was like here, there and everywhere. Nothing was really planned. The message was there, but the message wasn't being shown properly. So I took control of it in a sense where there's an iconic picture of me that I find iconic anyway, that where I was stood on the gates of Downing Street are here, then there's another set of gates just before it. And I stood up on those gates and I put my fist up in the air and all these people started raring about it. And I started taking a microphone on the loudspeakers and I started talking about how much of an injustice it is and what we need to do is continue this until he's out. And then I could see the police surrounding everyone. They started kettling everyone in. And I could see that happening. And so I got on the megaphone and said, everyone sit down. So I thought, right, if everyone sits down, it's very difficult to move 300, 400, 500 people when they're all sat down. So everyone sat down. And it lasted for a few hours. And then when everyone went home, the burning sensation of achievement, even only minimal, was so strong within me that I then spent the evening just looking around. What's next? We can't just leave it at that. What's going on? So what I did is I took the initiative to start an event. I wanted to do an event, a protest in Downing Street, and I started a Facebook event. And I started it. It was a free Tommy event. Started it, put it on the internet, on Facebook. Within an hour, it had 10 people. I was like, oh, bloody hell, 10 people. 2 hours, 20 people. Later that night, about 11 o'clock, it was 1,000 people. I was like, bloody hell, this has gone quick. Woke up next morning, it was 5,000 people. That afternoon, it was 10. Then the next day, it was 20,000, 30,000. And I was like, whoa. So now I'm thinking, okay, everyone's looking at me like, he's the event organizer. What are we doing? So then I had to sit there and think, okay, how am I going to do this? So I came up with a plan. I came up with speaking to I wanted a stage. So what I did was I got hold of a scaffolding company. I said, do you know Tommy Robinson? Yeah. I said, you're local to London. Do you mind putting up some scaffolding so I can stand on it? He's like, yeah, no problem. So I thought, right, there's a stage sorted. Then next thing I had one of the best people I've ever met in the terms of the movement was Tommy's cousin, Kev Carroll. I was very close to Kev. Still out. I haven't spoken to him for a while, but very close. And he's got a great character about him. So what's the plan then? And I said, well, this is what I've written up so far. And then obviously we were down the street in say May. I think it was May. The event was organised for Event. And I said, okay. And they said, Geert Wilders. Now, Geert is a very controversial Dutch politician, very liked, but he is constantly under threat of murder by extremists, like constantly. He has to have people at his house all the time, can't walk with anywhere. So now I've got the Secret Service. I've gone from like just doing an event on Facebook to now having the Secret Service from Holland ring me and saying, okay, who are you? We need to do a background check. This is what he wants to do. Can you guarantee it? This is this, this is this. So then the next thing I get a phone call from Gerard Batten's people, who is currently the leader of UKIP. You know, we want to speak as well. So it's gone from like, and I'm thinking, I've only got a bit of scaffolding coming up. And now suddenly like I've got all these like mega politicians. Then the maddest one turns up is I get a phone call from America. Hello, is that Danny? I was like, yeah. He said, we've got a congressman that wants to come over. And I'm thinking, I've never done this before. I don't know. And they just wanted the information about who's going to be there, what are your security things. So one of the things.
Sorry, during this time, is this picking up media attention as well?
Oh, massively. Yeah. Everywhere. So
people don't know what's going to come.
The far right are descending on central London on June. Stay away. So the thing that was quite difficult was dealing with the council of Westminster. So you can imagine, hi there. Yeah, I'm looking at doing an event with 50,000 people in Westminster. We want to put a stage in the middle of scaffolding stage in the middle of the outside Downing Street. Is that all right? No. So then they were like, well, you're going to have to fill out all these forms. And I said, do you know what? I turned it and I said, I'll tell you what, I have 50,000 people coming to Downing Street on this day. If you don't give me what I want, you're going to have carnage. And then suddenly I had a high-ranking police officer, met the police calling me saying, what do you need? What do you want? We're going to bypass the council. So then I realised on the first one, I thought, if this is going to work on the first one, I didn't realise it's going to end up working for all of them, because a lot of people used to ring me and say, well, we were looking at doing an event. How do you do it? I said, just tell them you're going to bring loads of people there. And if they don't do what you tell you they're going to do, you're going to cause chaos. So then the next thing is I get an American think tank contact me, and they say, we understand that you haven't really got any funds for this. What's your plan? And I said, well, I've got some scaffolding, a couple of guys coming up with some scaffolding. They said, what if we can give you some money to make it what it needs to be? Yeah, okay. What are you talking? 5, 10? Well, 30,000 can be on the table. Okay, £30,000. I thought, well, that changes things. So then I started dealing with proper security companies. I won't say a name, but there's someone close to Tommy that's been a really good friend of all of ours for many years, way before even I was involved. But he's got a security company. He was then put in for the security. They're not going to work for free. There's a big risk on these days. We had to pay for security. The stage was really expensive. I mean, the sound system that we used was on par with something from like concerts, yeah. So they were expensive. And then watching watching all this happen, I'll be honest, I was on a stag do in Ibiza for my uncle, and I get a call to say, oh, the funds are available. So I'm looking in my bank, and there's there's £30,000, and I'm thinking, do what you said you're going to do, the right thing, don't be an idiot. So I did. I clearly. And one of the things that actually probably went in my favour was the bank actually stopped the transactions to go into anyone. I couldn't do anything with the money, because they were like, well, where have you just got? Why is the £30,000 just in your account? They wanted to know where it come from. So so now you're in a point where I've gone from just standing outside Downing Street, putting my hand up in the air, saying a few things on the microphone, telling people to sit down, to now being the main organiser of this huge, massive event with all politicians from around the world, including, some really high-level speakers from Australia, from all different places of the world. And it worked. It worked so well. But there was always this doubt, well, who is he? Who are you? And where have you come from? So one of the things that did happen was my certain family members were took in the back of Range Rovers in the Midlands and questioned by some heavy people who I later became very good friends with, to say, who is your nephew? Is it true he went to prison? Has he ever been involved with the MI5? I mean, they thought I was MI5. They thought I was an undercover police officer. They thought this is a great blag. They've managed to get an undercover police officer or an MI5 agent to become the main organiser for Tommy Robinson.
You do sound like a knight in shining armour. Like Tommy is
it was too good to be true at that point. And one of the people that really didn't believe that I was who I was Kev Carroll at the beginning. And later on all that, he used to go, I'm so sorry, bro. I used to call you everything. I used to call you this, that. I thought you was a police officer. They never used to want to go over a drink with me, but at the very, very beginning, because they thought I was secretly recording normal. So that's how it sort of began. But it was a mad story to go from just doing a little protest and now suddenly seeing, and the day itself was to see 50,000 plus people. Imagine I'm on the stage. I've got Gerard Batten here. I've got Geert Wilders here. I've got all the congressmen stood there. And as Geert Wilders come down Downing Street, they had to be armed police. So you had a circle of armed police walking Gerard, the guy for the Dutch politician, down Downing Street, all holding guns, walking him down because he was so wanted. He was so concerned that he was going to get attacked by the extremists in the UK. So then watching this wave of 50,000 people, it just didn't stop. It was just waves and waves, and then they started turning on the police. So I got on the speaker. I'm like, we're not here for this. Obviously, you can imagine what type of people there. They were the concerned people. They were also the football lads, and then there were the idiots. This was the first time I'd ever seen the football firms around the country come together. You're talking Millwall, West Ham, were stood next to each other, all together as one. Very rare to see that, and every firm was there. Something that I've never seen happen, and something I don't think I'll ever see happen again, unfortunately.
I've seen the one documentary. I think it's Scrubs. It's one of the prisons, and Tommy's in prison. Yeah, and you can hear the protesting outside.
Yeah, so
was that protest, or was that another protest?
No, so that was. If you watch the ITV documentary, I actually got interviewed by Ross Kemp for that.
That's right.
Yeah, so I organised that one. I went to see Tommy in prison first. Shell of himself. Yeah. What people don't get to see is the reality of what all of this does to Tommy as a person. His mental health is been up and down dramatically for a long, long time. Since he started the EDL, he's been dragged through the court system with bogus stuff since then, and the mental effect it had on him and his family is something no one ever sees, and they don't realise that for a guy to go through everything that he goes through and to keep going, you know, I walked away, which I'll go into a little bit why I walked away. I had to step back from the activism, but to have everything that happened to him to go, you're not going to get me. You're not going to stop me because I know what I'm saying and what I'm doing is the right thing. And only recently has it been proven everything Tommy said since them days with the grooming gangs, with the Pakistani gangs, everything is true. And he was conspiracy. There is no Pakistani grooming gang. Grooming gangs don't exist. This is what they pushed. This is what the media pushed. This is what he was, you know, this is what they tried to do to him to break him. And everything's now coming out as absolute truth. But yeah, mental health for him is I've seen him in some really bad states, really, really bad states.
How do you feel when people call him a racist?
I just think about all the times we've been out in Luton and there's more black lads with us than there is white lads. Like his friends group are like I would say 70% are black. Like he one of his best friends who we get up. He used to make me get up at 5 a.m. out in the car at 5:15 to go to the gym. The main lad that we used to go to every day is black. It's actually lost its touch now. I don't think a lot of people realise that these labels, racists, are just so thrown around as blasé these days. It's actually done them a bit of a favour because people are starting to see, especially when they watch the documentaries and they listen to him, especially the Oxford speech. If anyone hasn't seen it, the Oxford speech it explains everything. So when they call him racist, we have to get away from that. We have to get away from it affecting him or affecting us. But it's laughable because it's not true. It's 100% not true because I've seen him do things for people that are not white.
Yes.
And if someone's racist, they wouldn't treat people.
Would you say he's Islamophobic?
I think he's got concerns, rightly so, about the religion of Islam. There is a definite difference between the religion and people. Tommy talks about the Prophet Muhammad. He talks about Islam as a religion. Talks about the problems that brings when certain people follow it by the book. When we went to Telford and spoke to the survivors and the victims, the things that they were saying to us, which resonated with the fact that they were going by, that they felt because they were Muslim, because they were following the Islamic faith, because Muhammad says these things in the Quran, that they were able to do these things to young white English girls, aging from 10 up to whatever age they are. And when Tommy sees that, and he sees the places in Luton that are completely unrecognisable, and it's all down to a certain immigration coming in. And listen, he hasn't got a problem with Muslims. He's got a problem with the extremist Islamic preachings, teachings, and followers that follow it by a certain way. I mean, there's no coincidence that the severe terrorist attacks around the world are Islamic, because there's a reason for that. There's a reason why a town like Telford, who has a 3% population of Pakistanis, are 95%. The convictions are for Pakistani men for street grooming. So one thing that people don't distinguish, they go, oh yeah, there's those are white people. Yes, we're a white country.
So
there's two different types of grooming. There is grooming that's predominantly by middle-aged white men, done on social media, done through the internet. That is a fact. And there are police groups, there are task force that go after these, that pretend they're young girls to get these men.
Yeah, if you see paedophile hunters,
paedophile hunters. Yeah, so
I've never seen an Asian guy really.
Yeah, it's well known. It's well known, and that there's tacklings through the police force. The problem is that what we've seen, what Tommy's seen for a long period of time, is the police actually didn't do anything when they had the evidence planted on their desk. They allowed young girls to be violently tortured, violently raped, gang raped by multiple men, with even being branded with an iron of M to say that they're Muhammad's property. You know, there's such severe torture and systematic rape that the problem we had, and the reason why we didn't stop, is because no matter how much you tarnish Tommy, no how much you say these things, he's the only man that continued from the EDL days leading up to even today, that stood up, put his head above the water and said, this is what's happening. This is what they're doing. And now all the police forces are in an investigation. You know, you look at all these places where these investigations are happening, everything that Tommy said was true. And look at what they did to him. And now you've got people that are trying to Like even GB News, we thought GB News was going to be different. We thought GB News was going to be a little bit different, and they were going to tackle things. They haven't even interviewed. Tommy's done like 5 documentaries on Pakistani grooming gangs. I'm not talking just sitting there. I'm talking about, in detail documentaries. Going actually, one thing that Tommy doesn't do, if one person says something to Tommy about a grooming gang, he'll never believe them. In a sense,
he does his due diligence.
He does. What he does is it has to be 3 people that don't know each other, all mentioning the same name, the same sort of locations, and the same offences. So, sorry, I didn't mean to say I didn't believe him at first, but he won't take it for face value. He'll wait till 3 individuals, 3 girls say the same things, and then he'll give them their right to reply, and then they can't say anything. And even with all this, we had evidence, and we said to the police, we have a dossier of information. Just pass it to a police officer. So I'm not doing that. We know, we've got evidence that police were working with the grooming gangs to prevent them from being convicted. You've also got one came out yesterday. In the Midlands, a police officer, it's on my Twitter feed, there's a police officer that actually told a child rapist that they were coming for him and allowed him to flee to Pakistan, and he's now not been arrested. We were told the same type of information. There were envelopes being passed under the counter because these grooming gangs, they own all the businesses. They run the towns. Yeah. So they were paying big money for these coppers to go, well, we haven't got enough evidence. And thousands of daughters of England have suffered under the hands of these police forces. And till this day, not one police force really has been taken to town to actually get something categorically said, like, you are to blame, this person's to blame. And these girls have suffered immensely, and they continue to. This isn't stopped. It's still going on now, 100%.
Yeah, it is a dark topic that needs being brought to light, really, doesn't it?
Very dark topic.
I just want to, it's kind of like we've hopped back and forth.
Yeah, I know,
yeah. When you first met Tommy, when you come out of prison, what did he say to you?
Yeah, so I remember the day. It was he was sat in a cafe at the bottom of the Old Bailey. He was in court, and I'd organised the event for the Old Bailey to happen in his absence of about to come out of prison. And I think he was about to go back into court for something else, even just been coming out of prison. And I remember walking up to him, he just looked at me, he smiled, I said, "What, boy?" I was like, "Yeah, you're right." And we took me aside, and he just turned around and said, "Thank you, man. Like, I don't think without you it would have worked the way it worked, because it was so disorganised before that to not for it to be organised properly. I did everything I could to make sure these events were exactly how they're supposed to be, and they were exactly that." And he thanked me for it, and he said, "If I can ever do anything for you, you're now my full-time event organizer. Anything that we need to get done." And one of the things that I need to make clear is that I was also the person that stood on the stage for 7 hours talking, and getting the crowd going, because a lot of the times when we did the events at the Old Bailey, Tom was inside the court. So I'm outside.
When I say Tommy,
so when I'm outside, there's 5,000 people all stood there like looking at me, and so I used to introduce different people. I used to talk about the injustices.
You don't want the awkward silence.
No, because the last thing you want to do is have these people turn up. I mean, you got to think Tommy's inside for the most of the day, so you've got to try and do so. And it worked. I used to get people going with the songs. We used to play videos. We used to bring different survivors and people from Telford to have their stories.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
And one of the things I probably shouldn't have done is, I did do, but he was just like, this is all down to you now. Like, he said, I'm just going to turn up. He said, like, wow, you've got to do all of it. And that's pretty much how it went.
Do you take a wage out of that? Like, maybe not, I don't, maybe you did. Maybe not the first ones when he's in, but I mean, when you ended up becoming like his...
No, never took a wage. The only money I ever had was when I originally got the 30,000.
Were you getting your stonies from at these times then, bro?
Yeah, well, I wasn't wearing stonies at these times. I used to borrow some of Tommy's clubber when I used to go some of the events. He used to give me one of the t-shirts, but it was back then. The only time I've ever taken a wage was when everyone was paid after the 30,000 was given to me. I was the only person that I used to make sure I paid my rent. I've got 5 kids. I haven't been working. I've got to make sure I can survive. So when everyone was paid and there was money left over, I took the rest of the money as a wage for myself. The think tank that was the money came from were fully aware that I took the money, and I felt absolutely like I deserved it, because how am I going to? So I've got to give this money back, and then I sit there. I can't pay my rent. I can't buy food. I can't travel anywhere.
Yeah, no, it's fair.
So I've never taken a wage from Tommy at all. It's never been about the money. Listen, if this was about the money, then you're in the wrong job. Maybe that's different for Tommy. I think he one of the things that people need to understand is about Tom is that traveling around the UK, doing these events, doing it because it's expensive. I mean, just traveling
well,
up
not
here,
just-
traveling up here today
Yeah.
cost me 30 quid. You know, we used to drive up to Scotland, down to Midlands, up to here, down there, different hotels. He's got all the camera staff, all the security, the security lads were like, look, I want to be with you, but I can't do it for free.
Yeah.
So people are like, oh, Tommy.
I believe the cause,
Yeah,
but-
Tommy, all Tommy wants is money. No, you don't understand. Everything we do
Everyone
or
wants a
did
bit of money, innit?
cost money. Just, do you know how much it costs to put 10 people in a hotel
Yeah,
for 3 nights? Do you know how much it costs to put an event stage? Do you know how much it costs for the screens? You're talking thousands. So people that have said that Tommy just takes money and they don't know what Tommy's really about. So that's one of the things I want to make sure I say, that I saw. Don't get me wrong, we used to have great dinners and great lunches and everything else, but it came from the fact that we had to eat, and if we're going to go nice places, of course we're going to spend the money to have a nice place. We're not going to go and sit at McDonald's. We need to be healthy. We've got to eat properly. We'll go on the road for 3 days. The amount of times I used to come off stage after standing there for 7 hours, I used to sometimes nearly faint because I haven't eaten all day. Not that that's the money advice, but it absorbs all of the energy out of you, especially having to continuously talk for an hour and a half, then stop for 10 minutes, go back on stage an hour and a half. You know, it was crazy. It was crazy.
Quickly, there's an event that happened in Oldham we spoke about before.
Yeah.
Can you go over on what
quite
happened?
very dramatic. So basically, Tommo was doing the MEP campaign. We ended up going into Oldham to do a rally. We'd only been there about half an hour, and we'd had some information that there are a gang of about 300 masked up extremist Muslims from an organisation called the Muslim Defence League, which they'd taken obviously from the EDL, English Defence League. And they were coming, they were all ballied up, they all had sticks and everything else. So we're suddenly in the middle of this housing estate. There's entrances left, right, and centre. Next thing we've seen is just all these men with masks turning up, throwing rocks, you know, and we got women and children there. One of the things that really stuck with me in that point was Tommy became a leader like that. One of the things he realised was he needed to get the women and children out of there quick, because if the police weren't holding them, and you could see that they were about to come through, and they started to pocket off in different locations and trying to get through to people. So one of the things I saw Tommy do was he emptied the cars that we'd turned up in, and we knew that was our only way to get out. And he said, get everyone out, got all the stuff out of the cars, and just put all the women and children into these 2 vehicles, the ones that he could, and got them to drive off, knowing that they'd be safe. And it left us, we were looking at each other like, we haven't got nowhere getting out of it now. And the police were just like, we don't know what to do. Like, we're waiting for reinforcements. Next thing, we're looking to our left, there's Muslim Defence League members jumping over garden fences trying to get this, and they're ballied up. That was a big day where we realised that things can go very sour very quickly. A lot of people got hurt that day.
Really?
Yeah, they got glassed, scissors thrown. There's a video, if you actually go on YouTube and type in Danny Tommo Oldham, there's a video where I've actually showed you all about. Very, very inspirational to see Tommy take control of that situation. That everyone was like, "Oh, what do we do? What do we do?" And he just said, "Right, all the lads, every single lad, get to the front, put a barrier of lads, a line of lads, and allowed the women and children to get into the vehicles, whilst bottles and everything, and people were trying to catch it, keeping it away from the women and children, got them into the cars, and for me, that's a moment that
I think
forget.
that's really harrowing to hear from Tommy, because people look at him as this hothead, loses his cool. But
He
this guy
does.
can,
He does, but
we've seen that firsthand.
When it comes to it, he's the kind of guy you want.
Yeah.
He's the leader that will get you out of a situation when most people are looking at each other like, "What do we do?" Tommy is inspiration to a lot of people for that reason.
I know you look at you look at him like he's 10 feet tall, same as a lot of people.
But he's
do.
not. He's not. Definitely not 10 feet tall.
I am taller than you.
I am taller than him. We've had this with argument. I'm definitely taller than him. He may say differently, but yeah.
But it's funny that is actually. But you're both taller than Diablo. That's
the main thing. God, what a guy!
I shouldn't even have plugged him.
You shouldn't even have put that name in there.
But listen, no.
Yeah.
Was there ever? I wouldn't say power struggle. That's ridiculous. But did you two ever clash in characters? Because you took the reins, so to speak, when he was gone.
I was a pain in the arse in terms of I like to party. In some respects,
so you were more triggers than clashes.
I used to just turn around and go, "Dan, you just need to calm down, mate." Because everything I do, it had a reflection on him. Everything that I did, if the fights that I had, when I say fights, when I defended myself, and there's videos all around the internet of that. It was not Danny Tommo. It was Tommy Robinson's right hand man
Yeah,
punches
yeah.
someone. Danny Tommo's right hand man, but all this, and that's what obviously the newspapers, some of the headlines,
Representation,
it's
yeah.
representation. So he just used to just take me time and just like clash wise. I used to do with some of his antics. He had some bad people around him. They would push him into doing certain things, getting on the drink and stuff. And I used to sit and go, mate, we can't do this now. Like, I'm not a drinker. I don't really drink. I definitely don't drink now. But back in the day, even then, I didn't really drink. But people around him were bad influences. These people that he called him his friends, they weren't his friends. Friends don't make your problem worse. And these were people that were making his problems worse. And the earlier days, we had a great unit. And that unit started diluting when they went after these individuals. Ones had businesses, the papers went after them, the left went after them. So we ended up losing these people and then ended up having other people come in that were nothing like these people. And they were bad influences. The amount of times I've had to sort of like rescue him from a bad situation or stop him from doing something stupid. I used to get calls from his family thanking me for doing these things because they were so worried about him. Yeah, it's a crazy one.
Sacrifices. What sacrifices have you had to take? Would you?
I've
say?
taken sacrifices. I would say are based upon not being able to live a normal life. When it was the height of it all my bank accounts got closed. Suddenly, I woke up one day, my NatWest was closed, my Halifax was closed, my PayPal was closed. I got taken off Facebook. I remember being at the gym with Tommy and then suddenly coming out and then looking at each other. Going, oh, my Facebook's gone down. And then I went, oh yeah. And I looked on mine had gone. My Instagram had gone. I'd been called a dangerous individual. My family had picked up newspapers that are you racist? Do you not like people? No. So being questioned.
Your family are questioning.
And you have to be
your
careful
role.
because I used to go to Speaker's Corner a lot and I used to be surrounded by like 30 Muslims all trying to talk about Christianity and everything else. And so I just thought how stupid really that was because I could have got stabbed because these people think I'm against them and I'm against their religion. And I am in some respects.
I've actually seen a video of you on Speaker's Corner. I think that's
it's
what I've
hairy,
seen you on.
mate. It was hairy, yeah. I've looking back at it now, it was a bit stupid really going in there like that, but I didn't care. I just felt like it.
Yeah, of course. You know, it's.
But sacrifice. I've hurt my family. I've hurt my baby mum. I've hurt my kids massively by being away from them. And up till recently, when I walked away. The reason I walked away is because these Pakistani gangs, when we were in Luton, we were face to face with a group of Pakistanis that were proven to be groomers, and we ended up in a restaurant and we thought they weren't in there. We got a shout from outside. Suddenly there was 30 of them outside, all with baseball bats, with hammers, with everything. There was a few of us, and they started reeling off my family's details, my baby mum's name, my kids' names, where I was from, where I lived, and I knew then. And I lost it because I was trying. I didn't want to let it go. Tommy said, "You can't do anything because we're trying to get documentaries together." And I realised when I was in the car, they were on the phone. They were saying Danny, and they were saying where I lived. They were saying my kids' names. So I knew that these are the people that are firebombing people in Telford. They're firebombing people's houses to shut them up. And he's just reeled off where I live, what my ex-missus is called, what my kids are called, and all this. And I'm thinking,
how does that make you feel knowing you're tackling something?
Yeah. Well,
yeah, so
I had to make a
evil,
choice. I had to make a choice.
And they know your family
I had
is.
to make a choice. I had to walk away.
Does it hurt you knowing that you've had to, like, because they've got you by the
If
balls?
I was single, I wouldn't have cared. If I was a single man, I didn't have kids and everything else, I would have just laughed it off. But I cannot take the risk of anything happening to my kids.
And you said they're firebombing the ones in Telford. Are you
Yeah.
saying like Luton's like the base for that then, for these groomers or something?
No, this is in Telford. They were firebombing. They were.
Oh, right. I thought you said these were Luton lads.
No, these were groomers. We travelled to Telford
I see,
to basically put a camera in front of a gang of lads that groomers that we factually found were raping children, and they'd somehow got wind that we were coming. They were waiting in the back with 30 of their lads. And then they're out on the street, and then suddenly, they're holding baseball bats, and then suddenly they're going, Danny, Tommo, this, that. And I'm thinking, how do they know that? How do they know that? How do they know that? And I had to make a choice, and then I had to walk away. I had to walk away because I couldn't have the risk. Imagine something happened to one of my kids. Fire happened in my house. It would be my fault. It'd be my fault. I had to make a choice between the safety of my family and my kids, or to continue doing this. So I made a video and I said, look, I have to walk away. And Tommy totally understood because I haven't got the means I didn't have the means at that point to move my family the way that Tommy did on multiple occasions. Moved them house, took them on holiday.
No,
took them
I
away.
understand.
I couldn't do that. I didn't have the funds available to do that. So I had to walk away.
If you could describe Tommy in, few short words.
I describe him as Lion of England, someone that if was managed right and had the right person with him, I think it would have now been the leader of a political party and would have been changing things like Winston Churchill could have possibly done. That sounds a bit dramatic, but I'm being serious because the amount of people. This guy could go on Facebook when he had his Facebook with 1 million subscribers. He could have 35,000 people on a live stream within 2 minutes. That's only a power that a politician would love to have. You know, he is the Lion of England. He is someone that has absolutely devoted his life to bringing you the truth, and look what's happened because of it. He's literally been taken to pieces, and his mental health, even to this day, talking to him yesterday, it's not great what they're doing to him. So, you know, make sure you put your thoughts and prayers out there for Tommy, because he needs it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some final couple of words I want to go on really is the world we're in now, like how life is right now, the
Life's
current
good.
world events.
Not my
Well,
life.
maybe.
Yeah, it's a scary place to look at the world right now and to see that my children are growing up into this world. God knows, what I feel like doing is trying to make loads of money, buying a farm in the middle of nowhere, and homeschool. I homeschool my kids. My oldest, who is in the world is old enough to be in the world of understanding things. I took him out of school because they put a documentary in a class with Tommy calling him a terrorist, and I was also in that video of doing an event.
Wow.
My son had to watch while all these people were calling him terrorist, and so I took him out. So yeah, the world's fucked right now, and I can't see how we're going to get out of it, and that's scary, very, very scary. That's why I've taken the opportunity to do what I do now, which is provide for my family on every level. And I'll never go back to activism properly again. It's a shame for me to say that. I've had my go. I felt like I gave a lot. I lost a lot, and it's now time for me to be a father and to provide and to be a good warrior of God and to highlight certain things over Twitter and stuff like that. But that's as far as it goes.
You're out.
I'm out. I have to for my kids. I have to.
Wow.
No choice. But yeah.
But you're saying life
and
is
my
good.
father. My father dying wasn't a great one. I think that put me on a downfall. My father died last year. That was just after I left, and then I had to look. I now have to look after my mum, my sister. My brother lives with me at the moment. It's difficult in the house that we're in. So yeah, when that happened, that was, you know.
It seems to me like your dad's been a massive part of your life, whether it was not being there or is.
I wish I'd have been able to say goodbye properly. I wish I'd have been able to prove to him that I wasn't exactly the way that he thought I was, that I loved him very much, and I wish we'd have spent more time together, and I wish I would have been able to maybe make that phone call the day before he committed suicide, and I'll never get that day back. But I've now had to step up to the plate and become the one of the family that has to look after everyone, and I'm happy to take that spot. I'm doing quite well of it. My mum keeps telling me so. Yeah, but going through all that stuff with the grooming gang and not knowing that I had to protect my family, and then my dad dying, I knew I'd never go back to it.
You're a warrior, mate. Honestly, they're big
things,
big shoes to fill.
Yeah, I know.
You know, mate. You want to be proud of yourself, mate. You know.
I feel like I am. I feel like, I'm not perfect. I've done a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes, but I feel like I'm going in the right direction. I'm being guided by Christ. I'm being guided in the right direction. I hope that fits me well and works well for me moving forward in life.
Yeah. Listen, I could talk to you all day.
I know. It's been,
I hate this. I feel like, you know, those talk shows who only got 20 minutes. I
know.
I feel like that, like on a time scale. But
no, I really appreciate it. Like, I don't do podcasts. I get asked, especially at the height of everything, people are trying to get me on their podcast constantly. You know, I want to talk about Tommy. I don't go on podcasts. I've only ever done podcasts with Tommy. So with you, I think you're amazing. I think the way that you come across, the way that you are central, the way that you're questioning is, I think you've got a great future in this. And I just want to congratulate you on the story that I've heard about you. And you're an inspiration to people that are going through tough times now, to look at someone like yourself and show that it can change and they can be someone.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Well done to you as well, mate.
Yeah, man. I look, it's been a real pleasure meeting you, Dan. And I've taken so much out of you, inspirational wise, you know, and to show there is hope out there for people. And I think I hope people watch this and, you know, take the good out of it as well, because people, they love to see the hate, they love to see the negatives and everything. Yeah, but everything that you have said here has been a success story in my eyes. Yeah, you know, people look at the story with Tommy Robinson as a bad thing. Mate, you supported someone in something that you believe in, and you got him out of prison. I wouldn't say you got him out of prison, but
The
it was a
demo
massive.
definitely
The
worked.
demo,
Yeah,
100%.
They worked. They put so much pressure on the British
It
government.
did.
And then the judge, just quickly, the judge that looked at Tommy's case said that the judge that put him in prison completely failed.
Yeah.
He didn't follow the right procedures. So it just shows that there is corruption in the court system. The people that should be in prison for a long time, paedophiles, people that go near kids, rapists, they are not spending large amounts of times. But yet people that go after the fact that Tommy got 12, 14, 18 months for what he did.
Yeah.
But yet you've got paedophiles that have been caught with all this on their computers and been convicted for this. They're not even spending a day in jail.
It's because this is the narrative they're pushing these days, isn't it? That's the be all and end all.
Sad to see.
I think I want to say that when you said earlier on in the interview about how when you went to prison it changed you, you learned. I think it did as well, mate. I think from that moment on,
I realised
everything you've done has been
and I would
good.
say to people that that are going through a tough time right now that time is a great healer. You just got to give it time.
Yeah, say it on the camera to the people. Give them your final words.
Listen,
right?
time is a great healer, and if you're going through stuff at the moment, best thing that I did is sit down and write down where you want to be in 5 years, and try and get one of those points in the next 6 months. Time, you've got. I know you haven't got a lot of time on this earth, but you've got time to change yourself. And there's people like, especially more so you than me and Tommy, that can show people that if you want it and you want to change, it's only you that can change. And that's the big point to make.
Well, you went from borrowing Stony t-shirts off Tommy to wearing them. So no, Tom. Yeah. Hey, listen, Dan. Honestly, I really want to shake your hand, mate, because it's a real pleasure, man. Honestly, and you too, man. Hey, in the future we might do some more content or something. I really enjoyed this conversation. I think it was well needed, and I hope that you got something out of this yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
I hope people who will watch this will get something out of this as well.
Well, just it gives an opportunity for people to hear who I am really and where, because there's been a lot of who is he, where has he come from? Yeah. Well, there you go. That's the
and not just that. Again, like you said, everyone is Tommy. I want to know about Tommy. It's about you, innit? It's about finding out who you are as a person as well. Like so.
I just want to finish by saying thank you to Tom for everything that he does, and please remember, have your thoughts and prayers with him, because his mental health isn't great at the moment. I know you probably won't want me to say that, but it is true, and they've got to make sure that we look after people like him, because they're very rare. They only come around once in a lifetime, and without people like him, this world would be a very hard place to be in. It would. Brilliant.
Oh, thanks for your time, so much.
No worries.
Guys, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. It's got me feeling a bit emotional, to be fair, and we just got to take things at face value, not what we hear by the masses, and I think Dan's a perfect example of that. Make sure you hit the like button, leave a comment, tell me what you think. Is he changed your mind of what you thought of him before? I think he's changed my mind, not in a bad way, but from listening to rumors, he's listening to him on face value is amazing, and I hope you feel the same way and you take something positive out of this podcast. Till the next time, stay central.
The Central Club.